Getting ready for Jhana meditation. The Pali literature mentions certain preliminaries for meditation, though in an important way they should not be considered preliminary at all. For most of us, this will be our full-time occupation for quite some time to come. Our ability to concentrate is hindered at present because our minds are filled with distractions. They are so common and so constant that we think this condition is normal, that it is the way we really are. We think that it is just the human condition, and that nothing can be done about it. Yet, although it is the current condition of most human minds, it can be changed. A great number of marvelous minds have done it, and they have laid out a series of principles and steps by which we can do it too. You cannot attain Jhana without peace of mind. You cannot have peace without a calm and settled life. You must pave the way with decent behavior and a certain degree of non-involvement in the hectic and alluring things all around you. In this chapter, we'll explore the way to live the kind of settled life that can be a foundation for Jhana practice. Morality. The first preliminary is practicing morality. This is the most steady and durable foundation for Buddhist spiritual practice. But Buddhist morality does not mean following rules blindly. There are not a series of thou shalt nots. Even so, with understanding and determination, you must follow moral and ethical principles. Determination alone does not produce Jhana, although you absolutely do need determination to remove obstacles while preparing for the attainment of Jhana. You must apply a fourfold effort to get rid of unwholesome habitual practices that hamper your attainment of Jhana. With unremitting mindful effort, you try to prevent the formation of any harmful habits that are not currently present. You make the same kind of effort to overcome the unhealthy, harmful habits you already have. You cultivate new, beneficial, wholesome habits that you don't yet have. With the same firm determination, you maintain these new positive habits and perfect them. Gradually, you build momentum with wholesome thoughts, words, and deeds. When you are mindful and really make an effort and build this momentum, the mind turns naturally toward peace. You find yourself looking for a suitable place and time to develop Jhana. You seek out the right posture, subject, and environment. When you begin the Jhana meditation practice, you avoid anything not conducive to gaining concentration. On the cushion, you avoid the hindrances, the reactions that would pull you away from your meditation subject. Off the cushion, you practice the same skills by avoiding the thoughts, words, and deeds that perpetuate the hindrances. The simplest and most basic moral practice for lay people is the 5 precepts. You have to enact 2 sides of each precept. One side is to abstain from killing, taking anything that is not freely given, engaging in any misconduct with regard to sense pleasures, speaking falsely, taking intoxicants. The other side is to practice the 7 forms of virtuous conduct: friendliness, compassion, generosity, truthfulness, appreciative joy, taking joy in others' good fortune and good qualities, maintaining a sober state of mind, equanimity. You must apply energy to beginning your program, continuing it and never giving up. You cannot attain Jhana without a sense of peace and contentment with your life as it is. Striving to make your life radically other than it actually and presently is will interfere with steady movement toward Jhana. Such striving is a form of living for the imagined future. Jhana grows out of living in the now. You have to find your present conditions suitable and sufficient, or you will always be yearning. You must be content with your food, clothing, and lodging. You need to find contentment in all the situations that arise in your life. Meditators find from their own experience that, when they practice meditation following moral and ethical principles, their greed, hatred, and delusions slowly diminish. As your meditation makes progress, you see the advantage of morality. Seeing this result, you do not become proud and praise yourself or disparage others. With a humble and impartial mind, you simply recognize that a clean mind, with mindfulness, friendliness, appreciative joy, and equanimity, does make progress in gaining concentration more easily than a mind that is unclean, impure, biased, unsteady, and disturbed. Contentment. Contentment means not becoming too greedy for food, clothing, shelter, medicine, or anything else beyond all your other basic requisites. The life of one who is content is very easy. The practice of meditation also becomes easy. This Dhamma practice, the practice of jhanas, is for one who is content, not one who is fundamentally discontent. Practicing mindfulness with clear comprehension makes the mind fully engaged in all the activities you do. You practice mindfulness and clear comprehension while walking forward, backward, looking around, standing, sitting, wearing clothes, and any other mental and physical activities. Everything is included, every action, every thought. Then there is no room in the mind to think of acquiring any material thing or situation. The mind withdraws from the very thought of obtaining something. This is contentment. You need nothing more than the moment provides. Contentment is being satisfied with wholesome thoughts, words, and deeds. You are content with your friends, relatives, and family members. You are content with your food and eat moderately. You are content with your clothes. You acquire them and wear them moderately. You do everything moderately without being greedy, hateful, or confused. One who is full of contentment feels full all the time. One who is discontented feels something is missing all the time. One day, Mahapajapati Gotami, the Buddha's stepmother, asked him to give her some very brief instruction on Dhamma. One of the things he taught was to cultivate contentment. Contentment is the highest wealth. What use is there for a well if there is water everywhere? When craving's root is severed, what should one go about seeking? Restraining the senses. Observing moral and ethical principles is essential for successful practice of jhana. This includes restraining the senses. You should restrain your senses and avoid unwholesome food, unwholesome speech, and unwholesome activities. Restraint of the senses does not mean shutting your eyes when visual objects are present in front of you, or plugging your ears when you hear something. It does not require pinching your nose when there is something to smell. You can still taste your food and touch physical objects. If shutting off the senses to prevent perceiving any sensory object made a mind clean and pure, then the blind and deaf would have clean and pure minds all the time. Unfortunately, this is not so. We are all human. In this context, restraint means that when sensory objects present themselves to your senses, you should focus in a certain way. As a diligent meditator, when you meet a person, do not focus the mind with distorted perception on the general signs of gender, or on detailed signs of color, height, eyes, ears, nose, lips, hair, legs, or hands. Do not use the mind to enhance or fasten on the person's movements, the sound of the voice, the way the person speaks, looks, or walks. There are beautiful things all around, beautiful visual objects, sweet sounds, sweet smells, delicious tastes, delightful touches, and compelling thoughts. They are the objects of craving. Our six senses are like hungry animals. They always look for something outside us to consume. So what do you do instead? You pay mindful attention to your own body and simply mentally note the arising of sense contact. The existence of objects in the world does not cause craving to arise in your mind until you encounter them and reflect on them in an unwise manner. Craving is one of the most powerful of the unwholesome forces of the mind. It is nourished by the injudicious consideration of these objects. The principal cause of suffering is craving. Once craving is eliminated, much suffering will be eliminated. Still more suffering will be eliminated once ignorance is eliminated. Both craving and ignorance are equally powerful defilements that cause suffering. In the famous teaching called the Fire Sermon, the Buddha likens craving to fire. All our senses are on fire, burning with the flames of craving. When one starts meditation, one begins by overcoming covetousness and disappointment. There is a difference between covetousness and greed or desire. With greed and desire, we want things for ourselves. In covetousness, if others have something, we think we should have it. We begin the practice by overcoming this envious craving and our disappointment in what the world gives us. Here, the world means our internal world. We watch the mind attempting to glue onto something or hold on to something, and we keep that in mindful reflection until it fades away. Seclusion. A suitable place for the practice of Jhana meditation is strongly recommended. Since we cannot find a place without any noise at all, we should find a place with very little noise, with very little sound, and by and large with an absence of human beings. Suitable to hide away from human beings and conducive for the practice of solitude. For Jhana practice, for the periods of time you set aside to really do this work, it is very important to leave behind all work, all people, all meetings, all working on new construction or repairing old buildings, all office work, and all family concerns. In other words, all your normal worries and unease. This is physical separation, and it is essential. And this the value of a retreat, of physical seclusion. You need mental seclusion too. Don't carry all your mental baggage with you on retreat. Don't bring your work, your office, mental games, business plans, internal wars, and fights with you when you go away. Say goodbye to all of them for a while. Tell them, kindly but firmly, don't trouble me now. I will take care of you later on. I know you will be there when I come back. Another form of seclusion separation is called liberation from attachment. This is a real luxury. Gone to a solitary place, you must also separate from the very habit of grasping and clinging. Only then is Jhana attainment possible. This kind of mental seclusion is pretty difficult to achieve, but absolutely necessary to attain Jhana. However, the benefits are enormous. When you don't put energy into thinking about the things that seem so very important, they do gradually disappear from your mind. On the other hand, whatever you often do with your mind, whatever you think about frequently and mentally grab onto, stays in the mind, coming back again and again. In order to give your mind a little rest, you need to forget things deliberately from time to time. This is like draining all the energy from your batteries in order to fully recharge them. When you drain all the energy from the battery of your electronic device and recharge it, the battery lasts longer. Give some rest to your mind. Cease to think about all those duties and responsibilities for a little while. Give the mind full rest by not thinking about anything. When you practice Jhana, the mind becomes fresh, clean, pure, and strong. Then you can use that mind to practice vipassana even better, and to take care of your life even more skillfully. You don't have to go to a cave to attain seclusion. You can do it in a group if all the group's members agree to create the physical atmosphere that promotes the state. This is exactly what we do when we attend a retreat. But you don't even need to do that. You might, for instance, set up a place and time where you can be alone, silent and undisturbed for at least 1 hour. A place that is like your own private cave or retreat center. Maybe it is just a closet or a corner of your bedroom. It does not need to be fancy or ornate. It just needs to be somewhere special, withdrawn from the world. It is some place that you reserve for meditation only, some place where you can drop everything you are carrying and just do your practice. A little altar with a statue of the Buddha and some candles is very common, though of course not essential. A little bell to start and end your sessions is nice. It can be ornate or starkly simple. Use whatever really reminds you of your own dedication to the practice. Be prepared to sit solidly for at least an hour. Even if pain arises, try not to move. Somebody who is really serious in the practice of Jhana meditation should make an effort to practice every single day, several times a day. You cannot gain Jhana while driving, nor should you try, or while working in your office, attending meetings, or attending a dinner party. You need a quiet time and a quiet place with a reasonably comfortable sitting. The only thing that produces that degree of comfort is consistent, frequent practice. Mindful reflection. Before the mind is purified, there are unwholesome tendencies underlying the mind. Therefore, greed, hatred, or delusion can arise. You see a form, hear a sound, smell a smell, taste food or drink, and there is an emotional reaction deep in the mind. You touch a tangible object, and there is a reaction. When you even think of some previously conceived image of one of these objects, craving, hatred, or delusion usually arise. These sensory objects are neither beautiful nor ugly in their own nature. They are simply neutral sensory objects. But when you perceive something with the notion that it is pleasant, yearning arises. If you perceive something with the notion that it is ugly, resentment arises. If your mind is deluded by something's presence, delusion dominates the mind. Suppose you wear colored glasses and look at objects. You see them according to the color of the lenses you are wearing. If you wear blue lenses, for instance, you see objects as blue. Instead, simply look at each arising phenomenon with no lenses at all. Just be mindful of the fact that you have just seen an impermanent object, that you heard a voice, smelled a scent, or saw the movement of a person. Having completed this mindful awareness of the sensory object, you return to your subject of meditation. You should be mindful of what is seen purely as something seen, and what is heard only as something heard. You must simply note anything smelled purely as an instance of smelling, something tasted only as a pure tasting sensation, something touched is experienced as just a touching. Thoughts and concepts are perceived as just mental objects perceived. See objects, hear sounds, smell smells, taste food and drink, touch tangible things, and think thoughts mindfully, with mindful reflection. Mindful reflection means reflecting on something without greed, hatred, and delusion. It means relating to your environment without notions of I, me, and mine. It means thinking about what is happening without thoughts like, I am this way or that way. I love or hate or care nothing about this or that. When seeing an object, mindfully reflect that it arises depending on a particular sense and a particular object. When the eye, for instance, meets the object you are looking at, there is contact. Then there is a split second of pure wordless recognition, and a particular type of consciousness arises. Depending on the combination of these three, senses, consciousness, and contact, other things arise. Feelings, perception, deciding, and thinking. Then come concepts, labeling, feeling, thought, craving, and detailed thinking. Then come deliberation, or perhaps more elaborate thinking. All of this arises spontaneously and in progression. Most of it is without any conscious will on our part, but all of these are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and selfless. Because they are impermanent, they have already vanished before you blink your eyes, before you can take a single inhalation or exhalation. Seeing these things is called mindful reflection. When your concentration becomes pure, sharp, clear, and steady, it can penetrate all these veils of distortion and show you things as they really are. Then the mind opens to penetrate reality more deeply. Practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. Undisciplined meditators find it very difficult to gain concentration. Discipline, or shila, both physical and mental, is absolutely necessary. All those who have attained Jhana have practiced shila. There are two sets of disciplinary rules of conduct. One is for the monastic community, and the other is for the lay community. The monastic rules are relatively difficult for lay people to practice. For this reason, the Buddha has recommended a step-down version for them. It is outlined in the Noble Eightfold Path. The Noble Eightfold Path constitutes the backbone of how we need to train ourselves in order to attain liberation. The 8 steps create the container within which meditation can do its job. The 8 steps can be divided into 3 overarching categories: moral conduct, right concentration, and wisdom. Jhana is included in the concentration group. The 8 steps of the Noble Eightfold Path must all be in place in your life in order to create the peaceful, settled atmosphere you need to cultivate Jhana. Right view. Jhana must be pursued and practiced within the context of an overall understanding of what the Buddhist path is all about. Without that view, use of Jhana can foster the purposes of ego, rather than eroding them. All use of Jhana must be liberation-oriented and supported by mindfulness. Right resolve. If you do not have firm and clear intentions of what you should be doing and why, you will accomplish nothing or get the wrong results. 3 types of right resolve are considered essential. They are the intentions toward renunciation, letting go, and away from ill will and harm. Right speech. You need to set up habits of speech conducive to your practice. Speaking is important. Every word you say colors your mind. Things like lying and frittering away your time talking about trifles will not help you at all. And, moreover, speech can reinforce habits of mind. Speaking coarsely and unkindly, for instance, actually strengthens the hindrances of anger and aversion. Right action. What we do comes back to us. What we put out into the world creates the emotional environment in which we live. Robbing a bank is clearly not conducive to the depth of calm and tranquility necessary to achieve Jhana. Even eating your neighbor's apple agitates the mind. Tiny misdeeds accumulate to create enough tension in the mind to keep you from the goal. Right livelihood. Making your living as a thief or a drug dealer obviously does not promote peace, but those are only gross examples. Even small, dubious business practices disturb the mind. Does your job harm someone or something, even indirectly? You either carry the tension and guilt of your deeds, or you deaden yourself to them. Neither will allow you to achieve Jhana. Bringing care and consideration to the means by which you make your livelihood is essential. Right effort. Obtaining Jhana is not easy. We have to make certain efforts to create the conditions that allow it to manifest. We must honestly generate an aspiration to achieve it, or it won't happen. Then we have to actually try. Then, once we have it, we have to foster it, preserve it, and maintain it. This is a matter of genuine intention and doing some real work. Right mindfulness. Mindfulness cannot become strong without concentration. Concentration cannot become strong without mindfulness. To achieve Jhana, we keep the hindrances dormant. It is mindfulness that notices the nature of the content of each moment of hindrance so that we can surmount it. Right concentration. Right concentration is using the mind in the direction of Jhana. You don't need to succeed at that in order to make progress on the path, but the benefits of doing so are considerable. Anyone who is interested in practicing meditation to attain Jhana should, without exception, practice these ethical principles. But don't wait until your morality is perfect to start the practice for attaining Jhana. When you meditate with imperfect morality, soon you will realize that it is very difficult to attain concentration. One hindrance or another gets in your way. Then you make mindful effort to understand and overcome that hindrance. You repeat this trial and error method, and one day you will attain Jhana. Yet it takes time and patience, and the willingness to simply start again each time you slip. Mindfulness. Mindfulness, as we have seen, is your first and most important tool for starting to build the foundation of Jhana and Jhana itself. You must make a mindful effort to understand unwholesome things as unwholesome, and wholesome things as wholesome. You must make a mindful effort to overcome the unwholesome and to cultivate every wholesome thought, word, and deed that you can. When you practice Jhana, you must make mindful effort to understand what you are doing, to prepare the mind to attain Jhana. All of us from time to time encounter people who push our buttons. Without mindfulness, we respond automatically with anger or resentment. With mindfulness, we can watch how our mind responds to certain words and actions. Just as you do on the cushion, you can watch the arising of attachment and aversion. Mindfulness is like a safety net that cushions you against unwholesome action. Mindfulness gives you time. Time gives you choices. Choices, skillfully made, lead to freedom. You don't have to be swept away by your feeling. You can respond with wisdom and kindness rather than habit and reactivity. When you engage in your activities mindfully, you realize for yourself that certain thoughts, like greed, hatred, and confusion, trouble your mind, and you don't gain even a little concentration, let alone jhanic concentration. Then, from your own experience, you come to know, well, I need a break from all these negative thoughts. At that point, you deliberately begin to cultivate wholesome and positive thoughts. Since greed and ignorance work as a team to generate suffering, you cannot eliminate suffering without eliminating both greed and ignorance. The Buddha pointed out how the practice of meditation can bring an end to your suffering and allow you to experience the bliss of peace. If you respond to insults or angry words with mindfulness, you can look closely at the whole situation. Perhaps the person who harmed you was not paying mindful attention to what he or she was saying. Perhaps he or she did not mean to hurt you. The person might have said what he or she said, totally innocently or inadvertently. Perhaps you were not in the right mood at the time the words were spoken. Perhaps you did not hear the words clearly or you misunderstood the context. It is also important to really consider carefully what that person is saying. If you respond with anger, you will not hear the message behind the words. Perhaps that person was pointing out something you needed to hear. Actually listen to what the person is saying and do not get angry while doing so. Anger opens your mouth and seals your ears. Development of mindfulness helps us relate to others with loving friendliness. On the cushion, you watch your mind as liking and disliking arise. You teach yourself to relax your mind when such thoughts arise. You learn to see attachment and aversion as momentary states, and you learn to let them go. Meditation helps you look at the world in a new light and gives you a way out of anger. The deeper you go in your practice, the more skills you develop. The ultimate use for mindfulness is seeing impermanence in action. Everything else is a stepping stone toward that goal. Mindfulness is always present in right jhana or indeed in any wholesome activity. So all the way along the path, you should endeavor to do everything with mindfulness. Then it becomes a habit. It becomes simply the way the mind functions most of the time. That way, when you attain jhana, mindfulness will be present in your jhana. The 5 spiritual faculties. The 5 spiritual faculties are mindfulness, wisdom, energy, faith, and concentration. In truth, you cannot practice right concentration by itself in the absence of the other faculties. When you try to gain concentration, hindrances arise. In order to overcome hindrances, you must use mindfulness. Whatever method you employ to overcome hindrances must be employed with mindfulness to make it work. One such method, the cultivation of loving friendliness, is explored in the next chapter. The energy factor is needed too. It boosts your practice. When you practice mindfulness and concentration, they work well only if you have adequate energy. Without energy, you will be sluggish and lazy. You will not be able to make much progress. Faith, as we have seen, is also an important factor. You will not have any initiative to practice if you don't have faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. In this context, this means trusting that someone, the Buddha, has indeed attained what you yourself are trying to attain, that there exists a roadmap, the Dhamma, that will help you attain it, and that there are people, the Sangha, who can guide you and accompany you on the path to liberation. Wisdom comes into play too. You must be wise enough to really understand why you are launching yourself on this path. What are your real goals? Which ones do you really believe in, and which are just something you read in a book or heard from someone else? All the 5 spiritual faculties must work together in order for you to proceed smoothly with the practice. People sometimes ask me to tell them more about what I mean by this word, wisdom. Here is one answer that I give. As you keep paying total undivided attention to everything you experience in your body, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness, all you can honestly see with your mental eye is that everything is constantly changing. Certain things you experience are pleasant, certain things are unpleasant, and certain things are neither pleasant nor unpleasant. But all of them, without any exception, are constantly changing. Your ordinary state of mind is not aware of these changes. So in spite of their changes, your mind, even without your awareness, does three things: clings to the present, rejects the unpleasant, and gets sucked into the neither pleasant nor unpleasant. This last is especially important. This neither pleasant nor unpleasant business is tricky. It is ordinary, everyday experience. It is so familiar that you think this neither pleasant nor unpleasant state is the experience of your soul or permanent self, the real me. This clinging to the present, rejecting the unpleasant, and confusing the neither pleasant nor unpleasant experiences with reality is a naturally built-in system. This clinging, rejecting, and getting confused changes too. With meditation, your intuition tells you that this repetition of changing, arising and passing away of all your experiences, this pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant, this is not satisfactory, not a happy situation. Seeing this frustrating situation, your mind gets tired of all experience, even the pleasant ones. Then your mind lets go of clinging to any pleasant experience. It lets go of any unpleasant experience. It lets go of any neither pleasant nor unpleasant experience. Then you experience peace within yourself. Then your mind becomes free from greed, hate, and delusion. This particular skill, power, or faculty, or the strength of liberating the mind from these three poisons, three weapons, or three kinds of fire, is what Buddhists call true wisdom. Each of the six senses is sometimes called ocean. Each ocean is full of dangers of sharks, demons, waves of greed, hatred, and delusion. The clear vision of using them skillfully is wisdom. The Buddha summarizes this like this: one who has crossed this ocean so hard to cross, with its dangers of sharks, demons, waves, the knowledge master who has lived the holy life, reached the world's end, is called one gone beyond.